What's going on, everyone? Welcome back. Today we've got another fantasy football mock draft for you, but it's a little bit of a special one because we're going to be deep diving the zero running back strategy in this breakdown. We're back on Fantasy Pros. It's going to be a 12-team full PPR mock, and we have got that fourth pick overall. So should be in a good position to go wide receiver early. And then we're going to take it from there one step at a time. But as far as the roster is concerned, 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, a flex, and then 5 bench spots. So let's go ahead and kick this thing off. And while we wait, a quick reminder, if you enjoy, hit that like button, subscribe, give us a follow on Twitter at AllDayPigskin to continue interacting with us there. And let us hear it in the comment section. Do you agree, disagree, your thoughts on the strategy, if you ever utilize it? Again, along with any other questions you guys might have, we will do our best to answer them all. But now we are on the clock. The first 3 picks have been made. Again, this is full PPR. Look, if it was standard scoring, then I definitely wouldn't be advising to go zero running back in that situation. I feel like the running back position is even more important there. But here, in full PPR, somebody like a Cooper Kupp that's going to get 100+ receptions is more valuable. Yeah, you can't deny that, but I mean, so is every other pass-catching running back as well. And even though we do these breakdowns, because, we try and have some fun with it, we try and assess the strategy, kind of see how it plays out every single year, I still just want to be upfront with what I prefer, and that's going running back for sure in the first round, as long as there's a viable option. Now, if the top 8-9 guys are off the board and then it's Cooper Kupp and there's a tier break, then yeah, we'll go Cooper Kupp, something like that. But in this situation, what I'm basically hinting at is normally I would go with Najee Harris or Dalvin Cook. But Cooper Kupp is on the board, and since we're going zero running back, we're going to go wide receiver heavy for, let's say, the first 3 rounds. So we're going to get Cooper Kupp here. I'm assuming he's probably everybody's, number 1 wide receiver. If not number 1, then probably number 2 behind, I'm guessing, Justin Jefferson. But let's take a look at the draft board right now. So what's kind of taken place, and what I like to do with these, whether it's zero running back, zero wide receiver, really any draft strategy type of videos, is kind of give you a breakdown of what I would normally have done. So in the first round, I would have gone Austin Eckler. I would have gone Dalvin Cook, Najee Harris type of pick, DeAndre Swift. But now in the second round, there's a couple running backs that are still on the board. Aaron Jones, I love him at his current value. Unfortunately, the way this played out right now, we got hit with a huge pass-catching run, not only at wide receiver, but also at tight end. If you want to go zero running back, tight end in the second or third round is also a way to do it, to, again, get a type of wide receiver 1 at the tight end position. But look, after a Cooper Kupp pick, you see Derrick Henry, Stephon Diggs, Najee Harris, Dalvin Cook, DeAndre Swift, Mixon, Leonard Fournette, then Alvin Kamara. Tough to really nitpick that. I wouldn't have Stephon Diggs that high. I'd have probably Devontae Adams and Justin Jefferson higher, who were the first 2 picks respectively in the second round. Then you see Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb, Travis Kelce, Tyreek, Debo, Samuel, and Mark Andrews. I wouldn't have minded, landing Travis Kelce with my selection there. I think, Kelce and Cooper Kupp would have brought me a whole lot of targets, a whole lot of yards, a whole lot of upside, and positional, advantages at wide receiver and tight end. But now, again, normally here, especially if I had gone wide receiver for some reason in the first round, I would be going 1,000%, pretty much running back. And that would probably be Aaron Jones. Not probably, it would be Aaron Jones. I love his upside. But again, since we're going with this zero running back strategy, I'm looking at wide receivers. And there's really only 2 wide receivers right now that I would consider. They are Keenan Allen and Mike Evans. Mike Evans is more of a standard suited wide receiver, but, with reports coming out that Chris Godwin's rehab from the ACL is going a little bit slower, well, I think Mike Evans wins a little bit in terms of value, in terms of upside, but I'm still going to go with Keenan Allen. I think he has higher floor, and I'm just trying to build as solid of a roster as I can, even though, Cooper Kupp also has a very solid floor. But this is full PPR, and in my opinion, Keenan Allen is still borderline at worst a top 10 wide receiver. So let's go with Keenan Allen here. And then we're really going to feel, I would say, kind of the struggle, if you will, in the third round. When you look at our roster, when you look at some of the other picks, when you look at the guys that are available, you see Javonte Williams, way too early for him in that second round, in my opinion. Kyle Pitts, wow, 3 tight ends in the second round. That's pretty crazy. Then Aaron Jones, if I had a draft where I got McCaffrey and Aaron Jones, I would be absolutely ecstatic. Then you see 2 quarterbacks, Herbert and Josh Allen. Herbert, the first quarterback off the board. Interesting to see. Usually it's Josh Allen, then Nick Chubb. So now it's back to us. And as much as I would love to take a running back here, somebody like a Barkley, somebody like a James Conner, Zeke, whatever the case might be, we're going to go with another wide receiver. And here, the guy that I'm looking at is Mike Evans. I alluded to him in the second round. I think here in the third round, he's a good value to me. He still has wide receiver 1 upside. Even though he's more of that standard suited wide receiver, very nice high touchdown upside. I think all these other guys in this category have a ton of question marks. And for that reason, I'm just going to go Mike Evans here. And, for the first 3 rounds, our kind of wide receivers are set. And obviously, I would imagine that our grades with this draft are not going to be all that high because, we're ignoring probably better players. We're ignoring better positional value and just going by a set strategy, which I always say you need to be flexible in drafts. That's why I advise against picking a set strategy because, there's been so many players at this point that we've passed up on that I would have gone instead of, like Aaron Jones, I mentioned before. Hell, even a Saquon Barkley, a James Conner, and Ezekiel Elliott, who are all unavailable at this point in time. George Kittle goes. I was kind of debating how far I wanted to take this 0 running back strategy. If he was there, I would have really probably put myself behind the 8 ball and tried to dig myself out by taking George Kittle, but that's always part of the fun. So instead here, what we're looking at is, A.J. Brown, Jalen Waddle go, then some of those running backs I mentioned, Barkley, Gibson, Akers, James Conner, and then a run on wide receivers, Higgins, DJ Moore, Michael Pittman, Michael Thomas, DK Metcalf, Amari Cooper. I wouldn't be drafting DK Metcalf that high. Michael Thomas is a nice flyer there in the 4th round with some really nice upside. Would have loved it if Zeke dropped to us there at the 409. Hell, even David Montgomery, I think he has some decent upside. So instead here, I'm not going to go wide receiver again just because at this point I'd be taking a bench guy. And, I kind of want to at this juncture start to fill out the other parts of my roster. I guess technically we could go a quarterback or something like that or a tight end. But let's at this point have the cutoff be 3 rounds because then you start to build onto the bench. And I think it gets a little bit excessive. But hey, if you guys want in future 0 running back breakdowns or 0 wide receiver breakdowns, we can go 3, 4, 5 rounds, whatever the case might be, just for the sake of kind of the experiment. But now we're back in it, and I'm looking at the running backs here. I'm looking at Josh Jacobs, J.K. Dobbins, Breece Hall, Elijah Mitchell, Travis Etienne. To me here, the guy with the highest upside is Travis Etienne because of what he can do as a pass catcher, and it's not really all that close. Yes, the Liz Frank injury it is worrisome, but he's young and doesn't have too much tread on him, so that's kind of the hope there. James Robinson isn't really going to be back this season, so right now I'm kind of looking at it. I'm thinking ETN. Definitely don't feel about him being my first running back. I will say that usually when I draft Travis Etienne, I'm all right, kind of looking just past the Liz Frank injury because he's not my first or my second running back. He's usually like a flex guy, my 3rd running back. So we're going to go with him there. I definitely would have him higher than all these other guys that are in front of him. Again, this is PPR based. We're assuming health. So I'm going with ETN. I still don't understand how Breece Hall is that high up. I don't agree with that. I won't be drafting him here. I don't like the Jets offense. Carter is still there. I think he's overdrafted. It's just a bad situation. So in my opinion, I'm going elsewhere. I'm looking at Dobbins. I'm looking at Elijah Mitchell. Quickly looking at the draft board, Chris Godwin, then Jacobs, Hawkinson, Cortland Sutton, Terry McLaurin, Brendan Cooks. I will say at this point, Darren Waller actually becomes a decent value pick. Getting, again, quote unquote, that positional advantage at tight end. But we're kind of hard pressed, I would say, at the running back position. And once these three guys go, in my opinion, there is a huge, huge drop off in terms of projections, really everything. So I'm looking at J.K. Dobbins here. I'm looking at Elijah Mitchell. I think it's kind of a similar situation. Dobbins is coming off a serious injury, and he's going to have a lot of opportunities taken away courtesy of Lamar Jackson. Then you've got Elijah Mitchell, who, quote unquote, is the lead back in San Francisco. We'll see how long that lasts, but I do like his upside more so. How, he could also face similar issues if Trey Lance is the quarterback for the majority of the season, have some opportunities taken away. Breece Hall, I just don't trust the Jets offense. If he landed in another spot, I'd be much, much higher on Breece Hall. But where he is right now, no thank you. So I'm going to go with, probably with Elijah Mitchell at this point in time. J.K. Dobbins, it'd be a lot more tempting if this was a pure standard scoring league. Then J.K. Dobbins would definitely be one of those picks. But now let's check back on what's available to us because, we are how many rounds? 5 rounds into this thing. Our wide receivers, great. Cooper Kupp, Keenan Allen, Mike Evans. Running backs, not so much. Etienne, Elijah Mitchell. You're going with guys with high upside, and then you're going to have to continue to kind of add guys to that position, high upside players. So, some rookies, things like that. But after our selection of Elijah Mitchell, you see Jerry Jeudy, Breece Hall, Joe Burrow, DeAndre Hopkins, Patrick Mahomes. I still don't understand how DeAndre Hopkins is being selected ahead of Marquise Brown, considering Hopkins is facing a 6-game suspension. Then Patrick Mahomes, Darren Waller, Juju, Rashad Bateman. Great. I love the Rashad Bateman pick. Love the value in Waller. Lamar, Kyler Murray. So a run on quarterbacks here. Dak Prescott as well. There goes J.K. Dobbins. Man, if J.K. Dobbins had fallen to us at the 609, I would have taken him immediately. Then Allen Robinson, honestly, one of my favorite value picks, Allen Robinson in this range. I would draft him a lot earlier. I draft him as high as the 3rd round personally, but that's just me. So looking at the cheat sheet again, you see what our roster looks like. Where could we go? A.J. Dillon. I'm not as high on A.J. Dillon as other people are. I still think Aaron Jones controls that backfield pretty decisively. In fact, honestly, right now, I'm kind of looking at it, and probably Miles Sanders is the next highest guy for me. In my opinion, he has similar issues to, let's say, like a J.K. Dobbins. Jalen Hurts is going to take away a crap ton of rushing opportunities. And then Miles Sanders, he's got guys like Kenneth Walker, who's going to take away pass catching work. But we need to stock up on the position. So I'm probably going to go Miles Sanders here and get our 3rd running back. And again, this is why I don't necessarily like doing this, because I think you can make the case that it's a little bit of a reach. So we're going to go Sanders, though, regardless. And let's see what happens afterwards. I think at this point in time, we can start to just go best player available. A.J. Dillon is tempting. I guess at this point, we can take him. If something happens to Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon does become a huge, huge steal and becomes a league winner. Just no ifs, ands, or buts about that. But, if both those guys are healthy, it's going to be the Aaron Jones show. I'm fairly confident in that. And now otherwise, I'm looking at these wide receivers. Nobody that I really love. I've already got my 3 guys set there. I'm looking at tight ends. There is Dalton Schultz. That's kind of tempting. I'm not going to lie. And, probably won't land him if we wait until the 8th round. I say probably. I'd say we definitely won't land him. But again, I think here, just because you put yourself behind the eight ball so much, you got to go with a home run potential type of pick. Yes, there's boom or bust aspects with it, but I'm going to go with A.J. Dillon here. And we've got 4 running backs. So then we can kind of treat this thing normally and take it one step at a time. I'm really curious to see where, some of these other guys landed. Let's kind of take a quick look here. So after our A.J. Dillon selection, you saw some quarterbacks also in the 7th round: Wilson, Jalen Hurts, Matthew Stafford, then Tyler Lockett, Adam Thielen, Devonta Smith, Drake London, Chase Edmonds, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He's an interesting guy, but he's obviously trending downwards. Traylon Burks, Kareem Hunt, Christian Kirk, Michael Carter, Gabriel Davis, Brendan Ayuk, and Kenneth Walker. And I think we actually got pretty lucky because Dalton Schultz is still on the board. We need a tight end. He's my next best available tight end. And let's not really think about it all too much because, it's a good landing spot, and I think it's a good value pick as well. And now we can turn our attention to potentially the quarterback position, looking at some of these guys that are available. You got Aaron Rodgers, you got Deshaun Watson, Derek Carr. So normally, I'd probably be taking a quarterback like in the 6th round, something like that. But because, again, we had to turn our attention to the running back position, the tier list of quarterbacks that are left, not exactly a group of guys that I love. I would have Trey Lance higher, but I'm waiting for the commitment 1,000% from San Francisco. So instead, I'm going to go with the guy that I like to break out. That is Derek Carr. And I'm going to kind of pencil him in as one of our potential starters, but I'm looking at it, and actually a lot of these teams already have quarterbacks. In fact, I believe they all have quarterbacks other than us. So using that as a little bit of a cheat, I'm going to go and select another position. So probably just continue to add depth. Looking at some of these other names, Melvin Gordon's still available. As far as wide receivers, Russell Gage can also be a decent pick if somebody like Chris Godwin has a setback, but I've already got Mike Evans, so I don't necessarily love that. Other names here, looking at it, Christian Watson as a rookie wide receiver, tempting in Green Bay, but I think Allen Lazard is going to be the guy that really benefits there. So I'm just going to add another running back. Let's just keep adding Melvin Gordon. I think he's going to be in a similar situation to last year. And, in some scenarios, that meant outscoring Javonte Williams. So welcome to the squad, Melvin Gordon. Damian Harris, he's in a similar running back by committee type of deal. So I don't love that all that much. But we've got 3 final picks to make here. And again, we've gotten to the point where we're just building around the first part of our roster, which was that 0 running back strategy. As you can see, we have not gone wide receiver since the first 3 rounds, and that's what's going to happen when you go that kind of heavy at that position that early on, because you're landing several, big names, and you've got the depth kind of. So now I can potentially turn my attention to it, and I'll go with the Russell Gage here, I guess. I like his upside out of all these guys the most at this point in time. So let's add him to the squad. Then we'll make our final 2 selections and wrap this up and kind of give you my final thoughts on the roster, on the strategy, if it could have gone better, and my overall thoughts on it. So now probably good to add another tight end or a potentially, another wide receiver, a guy with a high upside. I alluded to it before, high upside. I do like Christian Watson. I could also go with a handcuff in Kenneth Gainwell, honestly. So that's not a bad idea, considering how much we have invested in Miles Sanders potentially, which does have me scared. So, yeah, let's just go with Kenneth Gainwell as a handcuff here, as that pass-catching guy that's valuable in PPR, and then land our quarterback with this last pick. And our quarterback, like I said before, will probably be Derek Carr, as long as he's still available. Yes, he is. I personally have him ranked higher on my list quarterback rankings this year than a lot of other people. I think a breakout could be coming. So let's go with Derek Carr, and I imagine our draft grade will not be good. And somehow we got an A minus. And go figure. But the one time you go zero running back strategy, and I kind of dissect pick by pick why I have issues with each selection round by round, you get an A minus. That's why really these draft grades don't mean all that much. I would say I put more stock into kind of the rational thinking, not the computer grade. Nobody's going to really complain about getting Cooper Kupp here at the 104, but there's just so much more depth at wide receiver. That's why it makes sense to get a Najee Harris or a Dalvin Cook. And then it does kind of become overkill anytime you do one of these strategies, loading up on those positional groups. But at the end of the day, I think we bounced back all right. But we went running back for the next 4 rounds straight. And honestly, other than Travis Etienne, I don't think there's really anyone here with RB1 upside, which is the scary part. You got to rely on a perfect situation, A.J. Dillon, Aaron Jones getting hurt, something like that. I wouldn't give this roster an A minus. I'd give this roster a C grade because, again, the most important position, the running back position, we waited until rather late to address it. But hey, look, let me know your thoughts on the matter, whether you agree, disagree. And again, if you enjoyed, hit that like button, subscribe. And in the meantime, we'll see you guys in future videos.